everybody. It's Georgia Rose. Welcome to the Soul Space. I am having a really good day today, I think. I'm a little tired, but I have to say that it's been a good day so far. Accomplished a lot, putting a lot of mileage on the car. Been doing a lot of projects at work, but glad to be here with all of you. So welcome to the Soul Space. This is the Zencuda Soul Space for the Zencuda community. For all of you out there, welcome. If you're wondering what Zencuda is, and this is your first time tuning in, we are a community of like-minded and like-hearted individuals that are actually living our full potential by doing our soul work and spending time communing with our soul and spirituality and things like that. Living in right action, we are. So I'm just going to give everybody a few minutes to come on board. See what's going on. You can comment live on the show, and you can also call in. We'll put a number up on the screen in a little while. Tonight's episode is Things Are Gonna Get Easier. And I chose that title because I was actually looking at all the astrology for the week. And for the last couple of years, I'm coming up here every day, every week, and I'm talking about how things are turbulent and hard and rough and what's going on out there. And it's been not always great news, but tonight there's some good news. So things are going to get easier. So we've got a bunch of astrological stuff coming up. Also want to have time for cards at the end of the show. So let's jump right into the astrology. So Saturday, Saturn went direct. And you guys all know, I talk about Saturn a lot, and Saturn is, I always refer to it as like the dad energy, like the authority. You know, you're having fun on a Saturday morning and having a pillow fight, and then dad comes in and says, get dressed, we're going to grandma's, you know. It's that type of energy. Saturn is an energy that really limits us, and it's gone direct now after being in retrograde for a long time. So what does that mean? It means that Saturn now has moved back into Pisces, where it's going to be until 2025, 2026. And we have an opportunity to do some amazing healing work on ourselves. So let me say hello to some of our friends who are coming in today at night. I've got Marilyn here. I've got Sarah, Monica, Janine. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for supporting the show and being a member of the Zencuda community. I'm so glad that you are here with us tonight. So I have this weird phenomenon going on today. My hair keeps going like this. I look like the flying nun, and I'm not really sure why, because I even went in and wet it down before I came on the show, but it just keeps doing that today. It's very strange. It's like I have angel wings. So let's hope that's a good sign. So getting back to Saturn. So there's an expression in the astrological community that says, do your Saturn. And what we mean by that is Saturn is the taskmaster. It's karma. It's also an archetype of limiting us in some way so that we absolutely have to deal with something and have growth and things. Saturn has a way of bringing things into our consciousness, awareness, so that our soul wants to heal them. So this week we had Saturn go direct on Saturday, and it's coming right on the heels of a Venus-Neptune opposition. So what does that mean? What it means is that this particular energy of Saturn, with some of the other aspects of planets around it, and the fact that Saturn is now in Pisces, gives us an opportunity for healing. Neptune is also in Pisces. So Neptune and Saturn are doing this dance for the next couple of years, and it's going to bring in a lot of energy of fantasy, of imagination, but it's also going to bring in a lot of energy that gives us an opportunity to heal things that are deeply embedded in our subconscious. Because Neptune, which is also in Pisces, is an energy that requires us to separate fact from fiction, to know what is illusion and what is delusion and what's real. Neptune is our real connection on a very cosmic level, a soul level, a level of deep consciousness. And what Saturn there is going to do is bring a lot of our deep things out into the open, which is a really good thing, because once we deal with those things and acknowledge them, things get really easier. You know, all that stuff, that baggage that we've been carrying around for some of us our whole lifetime, with Saturn now in Pisces for the next couple of years, we have an opportunity to really bring those things to the surface and heal them in a certain type of way. So let me explain to you exactly how this energy is going to come in and manifest right now in our lives. And I think this is a really important energy. And this is an energy that gives me hope for the collective right now, and makes me feel hopeful that maybe not in the snap of a hand, but overall in the next couple of years, I think we're going to see some really deep healing go on in our own personal lives and in the collective. And I think what that's going to do is give us an opportunity to do things in a really different way. So let me dive into this. It's definitely a huge possibility and potential for hope. Um, so one of the things that I want to say about Saturn in this energy is this energy started for us back in 2020, 2021, when we were all sequestered because of COVID. And if you remember, during COVID, many of us went home and started to really have these emotional developments, these awarenesses that came into us. And we started changing our lives because we were on this big pause that required us to look at things differently. And we all started to have these emotional reactions. So that's kind of the epitome of how Saturn works. It brings things to the surface by restriction, through restriction. And Saturn is almost like the container that holds things for us. And that's why when Saturn was in Capricorn, we had a tremendous amount of our structures and our institutions, the environments even that we live in, which can be restrictive. We had them being this container holding belief systems, holding conditioning, holding operating systems that we had that was in place for many, many years. And what Saturn does is it takes that container, that structure, which is Saturn, that authority, that agency, and it starts to tighten us so that those things become uncomfortable enough that we reach a threshold of intolerance and then find ourselves wanting to break out of the container. And that's really the way that Saturn works in our lives. So wherever Saturn is in your chart, it's going to require you to step up and do your Saturn, which means look at things that are restrictive to you. And instead of going into the cave and the fear, which we all did during that COVID season, right? We all went into our caves. But what we didn't realize when we went into those caves was that whatever we are, whatever our belief system is, whatever our operating system is, whatever all of our conditioning, our neuroses, our complexes, when we go into the cave, we bring them all with us. Because when we all had to go home and sit for a spell, the only thing that was really available to us was ourselves. We were sequestered in a container, this human container of all of our stuff. And so what did we see? We saw people start to act out. People start to get angry. We saw divisions. We saw a lot of explosive intolerance. Because what happens is when we are living in a certain type of container, a certain type of structure, maybe a religious structure or a family belief system or a school structure, when that container that we live in no longer is in alignment with what we really start to believe, and our beliefs start to change, and then the container stays the same, right? It's like when you outgrow a school or a group or a religion or some kind of an organization or even your family. That container feels really tight and really restrictive, and so you start to step outside of it. But when you first start to step outside of it, it doesn't feel right. There's shame involved, right? Because we start to feel like we're supposed to feel a certain way. We're supposed to be in this container. We were brought up with this container. We're used to this container. And so Saturn will make that container more restrictive of us until we have to leave it, have to grow up out of it, have an awareness that comes into our consciousness that no longer aligns with those structures, those containers, so that we actually birth anew. And so this is in Pisces now going to be the structures of our belief systems. It's going to be our emotional structures. Pisces is a water sign. It's very emotional, as opposed to Capricorn, which is an earth sign. So Saturn coming back into Pisces now for good, last a couple of years anyway, is going to bring to the surface some turbulence and some eruptions. We're going to want to act out on some of the emotions that come out. But it's not time to act out yet. The way Saturn processes go in Pisces is we want to feel it. We want to know the emotion. We want to accept the emotion. We want to not dwell in the pain or the wound or the transition, but we want to feel it and be able to label it and understand where those things that are inside of us, the things we brought into that container, that cave, where did they come from and what are they? And Saturn in Pisces gives us an opportunity to really do that deeper dive to understand and label our emotions. So if lately you've been feeling overwhelmed. You've been feeling like it's all too much. You've been feeling like the world is really just going at such a alarmingly fast pace that you can't keep up. That's a sign that the container you're living in is no longer in alignment with you. There's something about the structures that are in place in your life that are overwhelming for you, etc. So when Saturn begins to move forward, which it's doing now since Saturday, at the same time that Venus in Virgo, which is the planet of all the things we value and our desires and really our value systems, is opposing Neptune in Pisces, same sign that Saturn's going into. So what that's doing now is you're feeling a pull towards what are my values? How are my values changing? Does this container structure, place I'm in, is it really who I am anymore? And who am I becoming in this energy? And why do I feel so overwhelmed and so, kind of cranky almost, like bothered, annoyed because of this container that I've been living in all along? Why all of a sudden am I feeling more emotional about my family and their influences when I've been living with them all along? Why all of a sudden do things that are happening at work seem to be making me more sensitive? It's because Saturn in Pisces is restricting you to bring into conscious awareness that which needs to be healed. So things are going to get easier, not quickly, but in the long haul, if you do the work with your Saturn. So the way that's going to come about is Saturn speaks to, especially we've got Venus and Neptune in opposition with this Saturn energy, it speaks to us of where we need to have emotional maturity. Where do we need to step outside the container and not have fear, but have excitement, curiosity about the opportunity that might come to us if we step outside these containers? Maybe you're younger and you're in college now and you've been thinking about switching colleges because the college you go to really doesn't feel right for you anymore. Follow that line of energy, not to act on it yet, but to ask yourself, okay, what am I feeling? Let me really sit with these emotions, because there's power in that. So sit with those emotions and ask yourself, what are the emotions? And, like I say a lot in the program, upset is not emotion. Saying I'm upset, that doesn't get us anywhere. You have to label it. Are you feeling restricted? Are you feeling stifled? Are you feeling unheard? Are you feeling jealous? Are you feeling annoyed? Are you feeling joy? Are you feeling happy? Are you feeling fulfilled? There's all these different emotions that we need to label in order to acknowledge them and know what they want us to do, where they're bringing us. So really in this work is what's arising for you, what's coming up for you. You're emotional maybe, or you're overwhelmed. Label that. What is the overwhelm? I'm overwhelmed because I have anger. I'm overwhelmed because I don't feel heard. I'm overwhelmed because I've decided to put too much on my plate and I'm saying yes when I should say no. Label, what is it? Frustration? Is it dissatisfaction? What is the emotion? You have to label it in order to find out where you need to go with it. Labeling our emotions helps us move energy. Being upset, hurt, oh, you hurt me. Well, how did I hurt you? What are you feeling? Are you angry? How did I hurt you? Are you fearful? Did I make you afraid? Did I insult you? Did I make you feel less than? Like, what is the hurt? Because once we identify it and accept that emotion, we can follow the energy of where it originated from for healing. That's the way we're going to heal it. So this energy is an energy that wants us to move our energy forward by labeling it, accepting it, understanding that we're being put in a container because there's an emotional maturity that has to happen. And the emotional maturity happens through empathy. And that's where the Pisces piece comes in, because Pisces is an energy of tremendous empathy. And you can read all these memes on, social media about, oh, Saturn's going direct, blah, 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 blah. Well, I'm telling you what it really means. It means that stuff's going to come up to make your life easier in the long run, but you got to do the work. And the work means sitting with the emotion, sitting with the discomfort. And for some of you, maybe it's the opposite. Maybe some of you are having an overwhelming happiness or joyfulness or satisfaction because you've done your work and you've done your Saturn. And now you're getting that karmic reward. So this is an energy that will still tweak some things so that you have to have that emotional maturity. But it wants us to move energy forward. So the first place we go to move energy forward and heal energy in ourselves is we have to get to a place where we're identifying it and linking it to the three-dimensional physical world thing that caused it in the first place. And that can be tricky because Saturn is also an energy of the elder, the ancestral. So a lot of our containers, especially when it comes to family karma, becomes generational. Your parents had a container they grew up in. Your grandparents had a container they grew up in. And they gave you that container in some way, right? We're all a product of the environment that we are conditioned to be in. That's the container we live in. But it's a container that was given to us. It's a container that was an obligation, supposed to. There's a container out there that's yours, that you create, that is in alignment with you, that maybe has unlimited possibility. That's the emotional maturity that Saturn in Pisces gives us the opportunity to bring. And it's playing out in our own personal lives, and you can absolutely see it playing out now in the collective. Because we see that people want to break free from containers, and when they do, they're immediately shamed and judged. And that's why we're fearful of coming out of these containers that we live in. We're fearful of coming out of the emotional conditioning. We're fearful of coming out of the containers that were handed to us from our origination and our first breath. You know, we have these labels. You're Italian, you're Jewish, you're Chinese, you're Catholic, you're whatever. It's a label that has a container involved with it. Our family does this. No, you have to go to this college because that's where we went. This is the way we do things every holiday. There's these containers that are handed to us, and we're told that that's our container. And we're fearful of stepping out of it because we're going to get shame and blame, and we'll be lashed out at, right? We'll be judged in some way. And that keeps us in the container. Well, in this energy for the next 2 years with Saturn and Pisces, with Neptune there, these containers are going to be falling away. You're going to have turbulence as people push them away. And what do you see now out in the collective? You see everything under the sun coming out of a container of some kind, right? From pro-Palestinian to pro-Israeli to everything from when we were in COVID, from wearing a mask and not wearing a mask, and you should do this and you shouldn't do this. And there's complete judgment and shame all over society because people are busting out of their containers. And the people who worship those containers don't want that to happen. You're wrong if you don't do it my way, right? So what Saturn in Pisces is going to do is it's going to provide the reconciliation for those things. It's over the long haul. And where does that reconciliation come from? Well, like I just said, Pisces is an energy of empathy. So now it becomes not like we're all going to, be aggressive and hurting each other. Now it'll suddenly start to, through osmosis and through this empathetic energy that's going to come out in the world, now it'll be more like, I'm really angry and I don't think that's right, but I can kind of see their side. And they have a right to that side. It's not my belief system, but it's their belief system. And, they're powerful enough to have their own agency. So we're going to see a huge shift in the collection and things will get easier. Saturn in Pisces is going to help us along. Between now and 2025, 26, you're going to see things start to be helped along. But you're also going to see all that turbulence as people bust out of the containers. So that's the energy. So you're going to see significant change. And it isn't a coincidence. The universe always gives us these beautiful gifts. We just had these eclipses, which are all about this energy. The Libra Aries axis is all about the independence, Aries, of finding your own agency and busting out of restriction, with Libra being able to relate through other. So it's all, the universe has given us this divine potion, this divine scientific, equation to work through over the next couple of years that's really going to bring a lot of healing to the collective. So if you find yourself in this overwhelm, this kind of chaos, this like feeling of restriction, but you can't put your finger on it. You don't know why, and you just feel cranky, and everything just feels too much, and I need a break. And it's because these containers, these conditionings that you have in your life, they're starting to create complexes. Or maybe they've had complexes for a long time. And what happens is those complexes start to create emotional energy of resentment, of struggling against the structure or struggling to remain in the structure. Like maybe you have a job that just really doesn't jive with you anymore. You don't agree with the policy of the place, or you don't agree with the way they're doing things, and you're trying so hard to just function within that. That's why you're overwhelmed. That's why you're depressed. That's why you're anxious. That's why you have a lack of energy, because the container and the operating system you're working in no longer is in alignment with who you really are, but you're repressing it. Then that's what Saturn will sometimes do in the lower form. You'll repress things because it's pushing you to come out of that limitation, but you don't want to do it because you're afraid of the judgment, so you repress. And that's when you become emotional wreck. You have grief, you have depression, there's a heaviness in your life, because you're trying to break free from those societal restrictions, those parental restrictions. And it extends pressure in your life because the pressure is coming from the external. And what we have to do is build up our own agency to be strong enough to create our own containers of what we really want our life to look like. So in this energy, a lot of times we're going to practice avoiding the process of doing that because it can be painful. But if you can work through that process of busting out of these restrictions, understanding what you have to do to be alleviated of them and create anew, if you can get to that place, what happens then is things get easier because now you have more energy and you're functioning in alignment. So one of the mechanisms that we do when we're in this kind of line of energy in our lives, and it's really an arc of development, where really this energy, if you're feeling this, I want to reassure you that it's because your soul is looking to develop to the next level. It's an arc of development for the soul when you're feeling all this kind of unease and unrest in your life. So one of the things that we'll do sometimes when we're at this tricky point is we'll start to pile things on into our life because we want to distract ourselves from feeling this way. And so that will contribute to the overwhelm. And what we do is we're really just using avoiding processes to cope. If I avoid this process, if I don't look over there and I look over here and have 10 million things over here to look at, then I won't look over there and I'll be just fine. That's what we do. And that's why life seems overwhelming and moving so fast now as well. It's safer for us sometimes to be in the distraction. The other thing that you might try to do when this is a complex is you're going to become the fixer, right? You're going to focus on fixing everybody's stuff except your own because it's safer for you to take that responsibility than it is to go home and sit in the emotion that you really have. So if any of these complexes are running for you right now, you're running these complexes in your life, it's because you don't want to be disappointed. You don't want anyone else to be disappointed. You don't want to feel that judgment and feel disappointed in yourself. But what I'm going to say is that when you get to that point, it's all the more important for you to sit and go through the process and allow your emotions to come through. And what I'm going to say is right now is not the time to act. Now is the time when you want to allow your emotions to work through and move the energy. Saturn, once again, just wants us to move the energy. So how can we do that? Physical body, very important. Even if you just get up every day and stretch and run around the house, or do some yoga or whatever it is, you got to move the body. Put on some music and dance. You've got to move the body because that's going to move the energy. You got to open that part of yourself. If you feel fatigued, you got to move the body. You got to move that stuck energy. This is a strong energy for things to come into your awareness that you're burying, that you're keeping in the cave. And if you can allow the energy to come through and move it, you're going to feel that healing. It takes a while, but you're going to feel that healing. This is over the next 7 months. Crucial time period for these healing mechanisms. Crucial time period of the next 7 months for Saturn to bring us into an arc of development. We've also got Mars, Venus, and Uranus energy contributing to this healing. Right now we have Mars and Uranus in a opposition. And I know this is happening because it's happening right on a lot of my personal planets. And so Mars and Uranus, when they're in opposition, gives us a beautiful, unbelievable energy to have the courage and the fortitude to really sit in the emotions that can be painful for us, to do a final healing on them so that things get so much easier and there's hope there, that we really can understand and have empathy for ourselves. So that empathy portion is really, really important, because in some of these instances and some of the complexes that we're running, these belief systems that no longer work for us, what happens is we don't give ourselves empathy. We distract ourselves. We fix everybody else's problems, but don't fix our own. We don't nurture ourselves. We don't practice self-care, that kind of stuff. And that's why I'm wearing my little heart shirt tonight. So the empathy that we can harness from the collective right now and from just the way the energy is in the world enables us to do the final healing part. So I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. So did you ever have somebody do something kind of crappy to you? And you go to talk to them about it because they really hurt you. And they'll say, oh, that didn't happen. I never did that. You know, you need to just like get over yourself. But hey, you know what? If I hurt you, I'm sorry. Right? We've all had that experience. They don't get it. They're not acknowledging what happened. And you might say, all right, you know what? You're right. It's not worth making a big deal over it. I'm just going to forget about it. But what happens is we really don't forget about it. There's a little pinprick or a little button somewhere in our body that is a trigger. We develop these trigger points and we keep collecting them and collecting them and collecting them. True healing can only occur when there's empathy. So same scenario, somebody hurts you. You go to them and you're like, you know, you really hurt me when you said this or this happened and I don't really understand why it happened. Can we have a discussion about it? And they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that I hurt you that much. You're right. I did say that. And I can see where it would come off like that to you. And, you know, I never really want to cause you any harm or anything. I just was in a bad mood, or I was angry because of this, or I was jealous because of this. And please forgive me. I understand how you must have felt. And in that conversation now, you as the wounded party can understand what happened and how they did that to you and have empathy for them because they've shown you empathy. And you're going to walk away from that conversation and there's no trigger. There's no button. You're healed. Well, we have to do that with ourselves. So we've got to unpack the emotion, unpack the baggage, unpack what's in that container that's driving us crazy and making us frustrated and overwhelmed and uncomfortable and hurting us all the time, right? We have to unpack that and give ourselves empathy there and get to the part where we understand how that happened. And even though that person may not ever understand and have empathy for me, I'm going to send that person love because they're either damaged or they just don't have that level of consciousness yet. They don't have the courage to go to their level of consciousness to understand my empathy. So, or have empathy for me. But we've got to do that journey. And it can be painful. Sometimes we have things from childhood. Sometimes we have things that happened yesterday, you know, and we just want to sweep them under the rug. That's really what we want to do because it's uncomfortable and we don't want to have those conflicting emotions, but they'll never heal until we do our Saturn. So you got to take them out, empty the container. What did you bring in the cave with you when you go into the cave? Because it's all in there. It's all in you. And we have to really make sure that we're allowing ourselves the opportunity for that arc of development. Because it's the same thing like when we walk away from people and pretend they don't exist. That wound is always there. Go home. If you want to pretend they don't exist, that's great. Send them love anyway. But sit with yourself and take it out and unpack it and don't pretend it didn't happen. Give yourself the empathy, the nurturing, and if you got to cry it out, if you got to feel it, whatever you have to do, but get to that place of healing because this is the energy over the next 7 months that can really contribute to our arc of development. What do I mean by arc of development? I mean going into that scorpionic, Mars and Scorpio, Uranus and Taurus, opposition energy, while we have Saturn in Pisces with Neptune bringing us empathy, giving us a chance to heal, that Mars and Scorpio energy gives us the courage, the assertion to not be so fearful of going into those containers, those deep vaults that we have. And then Uranus in Taurus actually sets us up to bust the energy up. Uranus in Taurus is the turbulence. It's like the electric shock. Because what we're doing when we walk away from those conversations where healing really can't occur because there's no empathy, what we're doing is we're upsetting our nervous system. We're trying to force ourselves in a container of pretending it didn't happen when we know damn well somewhere in our body's telling us it happened. We've got the uts or the headache or the sinus problem or the leg pain or the backache. It's living in the body. It's our triggers. So we've got to do this deep healing. And we have this energy, this beautiful energy, while Mars opposes Uranus, Scorpio, Taurus, while Neptune and Saturn are in Pisces, beautiful empathy, connection. And then we have Venus in Virgo, which is the abduction, the pain, the desolation, what happened. All these planets are perfectly planned, perfectly in sync to bring us this beautiful energy of deep, deep healing, as long as we're comfortable enough to go deep in there and get it all out. Scoop it out, scoop it out. Uranus gives us the push of fracturing the beliefs. That's what Uranus does. Uranus is the planet of sudden, changes. It's sudden, unexpected change. But what it really does is it fractures beliefs. It can fracture belief. For instance, things happen in the world, like, when 9/11 happened here in the States, it was on a Uranus transit. It fractured a lot of belief systems for a lot of people that thought we were always safe and this could never happen. Uranus comes in to fracture beliefs so that we can step out of our containers because they're restricting us. It's about freedom. It's about creation. It's about being in alignment with your true nature. So it's a really exciting thing to be able to have going on right now if we use it correctly. This is also, remember, and I wrote this down, that we can't function without these containers. So be grateful for them. I grew up and my parents sent me to Catholic school and it was a very rigid container. But I'm so grateful for it because within that rigid container, I found an existence of faith that I wouldn't have found if I wasn't living in that container in those formative years. So remember that we can't exist without containers, because containers or conditioning, whatever you want to call those parameters of life, those are the places where we reinforce our existence. It's places where at some point of energy we feel like we belong until we don't feel that way anymore. So they serve a big purpose. They're a place for our ideas to exist. They're a place for us at some point to be validated. So, you can't have resentment for those containers. We develop resentment for them when we don't do our work to build a new container and we leave ourselves in the old one. That's when all the resentment comes in. So build a new container. Give the container that no longer is working for you a big hug and a kiss goodbye. There's nothing terrible about leaving it. Nothing bad will happen to you. You're going to have a much more free and liberating life. All right. So I just want to, in closing, say that the Saturnian processes are really about growth. So don't think it's about, canceling people or cutting things out of your life. If you need to do that, fine, but you do it in growth. You do it with gratitude for everything that has occurred so far. All right. And also the other lesson of Saturn is the law of impermanence. And this is a really beautiful, beautiful lesson in universal law, because the fact that everything's impermanent is actually beautiful, because first of all, we get away from monotony, right? Nothing's going to be monotonous if it's always and ever changing. And the beautiful thing about impermanence is that we are forever growing and learning and creating within divine light. So how amazing is that, right? And then the other thing about impermanence is it also gives us an opportunity for hope. When my dog Sparky died, I was inconsolable, and at times I still am. I picked up a Christmas ornament that looked like him in the store the other day, and he's been gone almost 2 years. And I started to cry because he has such a beautiful, beautiful place in my own container, in my heart, in my vault, right? But one of the things that's beautiful about the fact that he did pass in that impermanence is that I too will pass one day. I'm not permanent, and I'll get to see him again on the other side. So there's a beauty to that impermanence. So when you feel fearful about leaving a container behind, whether it's your family belief system or a career or a structure of any kind, those containers, when you feel fearful about leaving them behind, no, it's not forever. They don't exist forever in this realm, and you won't be without them forever if you really want them, especially our loved ones or people that judge us or passed over and maybe didn't get a last word with us or whatever it might be. That impermanence means that the energy we're in right now, that energy of loss, is not permanent. So heal it and allow yourself to build anew. So I'm going to go to some cards. I'm going to look in the comments first to see if there's anything. Happy Monday. You're a Pisces, Elaine, exactly. And you're changing containers in your geographical move, see? Jackie's watching, Trish Adams. Hey, everybody. I'm going to pull a couple of cards for those at the end of the show. But I'd love to see your comments. Like, does what I'm saying make sense? Because it's really, this energy was ignited during that COVID sequestering. And then we've been in and out of it as Saturn has been traveling. But now Saturn really takes its residence in Pisces for the next couple of years. And this is really about creating new structures, new containers in our life. But it's not just that material world stuff. It's about going into the vault, going into the cave, scooping out the stuff to be healed. The healing that we can do in this energy is just absolutely amazing. Amazing. Just reading my notes over in case there's anything else that I wanted to look at. Yeah, this is deep emotional processing. The other thing I was going to say is that a lot of times when we go through this energy, sometimes we can feel repressed in a way because it's almost like, you're the horse at the gate and you want to run the race, but like you're being held back because Saturn is limitation. But what's holding you back is the fear of that, almost like you're going to be exiled, right? Like how many of us, I'll give you an example from my own life. When I had to go and tell my family that now I'm kind of doing woo-woo stuff where I'm a reader and a psychic and an astrologer and everything. Driving there to have that conversation, in the back of my mind, I pretty much thought I was going to be exiled. And that's really the word to use because it's almost what it feels like. Whether it's a friend group or, at work you don't agree with something, you feel like you're going to be exiled if you don't agree. And that's where that fear, that emotional fear comes from. Because you're no longer holding the energy that container holds. And you really have to be free of it. But it's a scary thing to do. So I think that's everything I wanted to say about this. Also, I wanted to just talk a little bit about Wednesday's energy because Wednesday's energy is an energy that, here it is, this is my little thing. Wednesday's energy is all about that Venus opposite Neptune, which will bring things up. So the energy that I'm describing to you, and you might have to listen to this video a couple of times to really understand it, but do that. Play it when you're in the shower or when you're just puttering around the house or whatever. Because especially on Wednesday, the 8th, energy will erupt. Things are really going to start coming into our consciousness and our awareness that we didn't realize. It's those aha moments. You're really going to get those on Wednesday and into the rest of this week. And the reason those things are coming up into consciousness is because the soul really wants you to do this healing, really wants you to take these things out, dust them off, see where they're going, and that kind of thing. Yeah, and that's the arc of development. Again, even the things that we ignore and we don't want to do, they'll start to come into our consciousness and permeate through osmosis because the soul really does want us to heal them. So I'd love to see your comments. Marilyn is saying that she started to purge so many deep hurts with deep empathy for yourself. You're in the energy, baby. That's the energy. It's just having that forgiveness and that empathy because we can't fully heal until we have empathy. Empathy is what is a part of the healing process. It brings us to the cleanse, the forgiveness. Yep, Janine, I get it. And Cheryl says this really hit home. Yeah, and it's going to hit home for a lot of people, not because I'm any kind of special guru, other than the fact, like, I read the energy. So when I read the energy, I know this is what's out in the collective. And things will get easier if you can bravely face these things. It really will. But also, just, like, this is like a PSA caution statement. A lot of people can't do this work. And so out in the collective, you will see eruptions as people start to feel repressed or resentful of the container. You see it with the pro-Palestinian movement now, all these things against Jews, which, I think is just horrendous. And that's also people who have been handed a container. This is your belief system, and are taking it to the ninth degree. And what that is also a complete and total example of, and the astrologers out there will really see this, Saturn is that ancestral energy. So for a lot of people, the lower octave of this energy, the lower harmonic, is almost going to be like, you'll feel this in the collective. It's like we're going back in time to a time when our ancestors had these eruptive feelings or these belief systems. And it's almost like they're coming into conscious awareness for people now. That's a Saturn energy. It's a Saturnian type of thing, because Saturn is like the grandfather. Saturn is time, it's Chronos. So it's like part of the energy is intuitively and instinctively, people start to have belief systems that are archaic erupt through their psyche and their bodies. I know it sounds hoo-hoo, but I'm telling you, that's what Saturnian things will do. And it'll happen to you too. Like all of a sudden you'll start to think about something from when you were a child, or something your mother told you about her life, and all of a sudden this generational stuff will come up. But we have this beautiful energy to heal it if we can go into the empathy. Okay, we got Trish Adams here. She says, I don't know what this is saying. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just trying to read. Okay, that's fine. Yes, you could definitely inbox me, Gita. That would be no problem at all. So I don't understand what that's saying. I don't know if it's a bot. Okay, so I'm going to pull a few cards just for the collective. Let's see if what I'm saying about the energy is actually true. And also, we're in the process of creating my merchandise store. My wonderful guru, Bobby, is doing that. Love him, love him, love him for that. So we're going to have shirts and other stuff with the Zencuda logo. So if you want to put Zencuda out there and join the wave and all my beautiful Zencuda community, we would love to have you do that. And share the show, guys, if you think this is something people will really benefit from. So I'm going to pull 3 cards for the collective. We've got our beautiful assistant in back, Carmine, with the camera on my cards. Look at that beautiful card spread. So first thing I'm going to tell you guys is I'm definitely getting confirmation on the hope, because this card, which is the 2 of Cups, is all about actually the soul. And it's the card of the tarot card in the deck that actually is about beautiful soul mate energy and union. And I feel like I have to tell you on a personal basis, I know we're going through some rough times and we probably have some rough waters ahead, but I also truly feel like we're going to start to see more empathy in the collective. And I said it when all these things occurred in Israel and Ukraine and these atrocities happened. I said that the higher octave of atrocity is that it brings tremendous empathy into the world. And sometimes we have to be shook to do that. That's also Uranian energy. So this card, which is the 2 of Cups, that soulmate kind of beautiful coming together, unity, oneness energy, that's really the energy that we're talking about. Coming into oneness with someone to have forgiveness. And then we've got this other card, which to me is very much like a Capricorn, Saturn kind of energy of ancestors. This is what we oftentimes call the mother hospitality, sentimentality card. It's really about feeling home, feeling sentimental, feeling that familiarity of bygone eras. And I think this is really indicative of those containers we're talking about, like letting go of them with gratitude. And then the card that I have in reverse is the Queen of Swords. The Queen of Swords is an energy of someone being in command, agency, being in their own agency, very much a energy of, knowing yourself and being really confident and strong in yourself. In reverse here, it means we're not there yet. We still have a lot of things to do to clear out that container so that we are really in a place of confidence, energy for ourselves. So I'm going to pick some cards for Janine and do a reading for Janine tonight. Just picked her randomly. And let's see what we got for Janine. Look in my comments. Oh, I see all my comments now. Oh, Elaine, I've been wanting to call you as well. Gaia prayers for peace. Yeah, that's so beautiful. What Marilyn is saying is that she's doing a lot of Gaia prayers. Gaia is Mother Earth. And that's so important now. And the reason why I wanted to do this show and really encourage all of you to clear out your containers, go into your vaults and clear out the stuff, is because we've got to keep our vibrations really, really high in the world. That's really, really important now for what's going on in the collective, is keeping our vibrations super, super high. We got to send that love and joy out to the world and empathy out to the world. So this is for Janine Gemelli. Janine, in reverse, I have the Seven of Swords. The Seven of Swords in reverse is actually good, because that is someone like a thief in the night. Okay, so all the cards are in reverse. Now, don't feel upset about that. When I see reversals in a spread, it usually means the energy either hasn't happened yet or it's in the past. How do I know? Well, I read intuitively and psychically, so I just know what the energy feels like. So we have this, what I know Elaine calls the Sneaky Pete card. This card is in reverse. It's the Seven of Swords. The Seven of Swords, when it's right side up, what it really means is like a thief in the night, someone who comes in and steals your energy. The fact that this is in reverse, I feel, means that you are moving away from this energy, and soon this energy will not be able to act in that way and steal your energy and cause you grief and, that kind of stuff. It also is definitely a card of you moving away from people who aren't truthful with you. Then I have the Balance card in reverse. I think this basically is just telling you that you're allowing yourself to be out of balance. And I know we had a conversation, you and I, over the weekend, where you feel like you're doing an awful lot, that overwhelm. A lot of my people are calling up, talking about that overwhelm. As I said in the video, we're feeling that way because we're putting ourselves in containers we don't belong in. So this energy of balance, I feel like you're not getting it yet. It's like you were in a better place before. The imbalance is coming up and it's really amplified, but it's amplifying so that you take a step back and go back into the balance. And then this card is like the culmination of the listing. It's in reverse because it hasn't happened yet, but the fact that it's the last card that I pulled leads me to believe this is the ending. We just haven't achieved it yet because we still have to do some work on the balance. And what this is about is the Ten of Cups is the most joyous, most wonderful card in the deck. It's a card of harmony, a card of family coming together in a soul space, and just unity and harmony and oneness. A lot of people call that the soulmate card as well. So to me, the work that you have to do is you're already doing it. You're moving away from things that aren't your truth, your personal truth, moving out of the container that no longer really holds your vibe. You still have a lot of balancing to do in order to get to the harmony that's really waiting for you. And that's really the reading. So that's a great reading for you, but one also that's really requiring work from you and to buckle down and do it. So don't make yourself overwhelmed in that. Just realize that you need to do a little bit of work and put your energy where it's best spent instead of agonizing over those people who maybe aren't your truth anymore. All right. So I want to tell you guys, I am in the process of trying to do some live events. I have to talk to Bobby here in the studio about that because I want to be able to film those for you. I recently did a retreat, and it was a full day retreat for people that I actually work with in my regular Earthbound job. And it was such an amazing experience that I will be bringing one of those to the collective soon. I'm also planning on doing a very extensive live in-person astrology series at one of our local venues. I spoke to Jackie about that, who's my yoga teacher, and that's going to be coming up in 2024. So I'm really getting back on the bandwagon of trying to do a lot more events. And I just want to put that out to you because if you guys could be helpful so we can grow our community of support, because I don't want the show just to be about me. I want it to be about other people who are practicing what we do and really trying to live their lives in right action to their best of their potential. So share the show, share the message. We're going to have some merch if you want to wear shirts and things like that. Next week on the show, I have Kathy Marinelli Gagliano coming back on. We're going to do part 2 of her story, and she also has her second book in the works, so we're going to be helping her promote that. Such a worthwhile cause for anybody who has special needs children. And in the meantime, you can find me on Zenkuda.com. You can find me right here in the Soul Space every Monday night at 7 on Facebook on Zenkuda Soul Space, and also on Instagram on Zenkuda Official. And also, if you haven't yet, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. There's over 160 videos on there, astrology, the Soul Space show, and all kinds of life tips. So thanks so much, and I'll see you guys next week right here in the Soul Space. Do your Saturn.